There's something almost comical and yet profoundly revealing about our modern condition. We have decoded the genome, launched satellites that orbit distant planets, and sent robotic emissaries to touch the edges of the solar system. And yet, when the sun vanishes in the middle of the day, millions of us will pause, gasp, and for a moment, feel something ancient stir in our bones. This isn't a collapse of reason. It's a collision between what we know intellectually and what we feel instinctively. Because even in the age of quantum computers and machine learning, we remain children of the cosmos' biological beings, wired to respond to light and shadow, to day and night, to the primal rhythm of the sky. On April 8th, 2024, North America will witness a total solar eclipse. And it is my singular plea that when this moment arrives, you do not panic. Not because there's nothing extraordinary happening, but because what's happening is the most exquisite display of order, not chaos, that nature can offer. It is a moment in which you're not witnessing disaster. You are witnessing design. A total solar eclipse is not magic, but it is magical. The moon, lifeless and cold, will silently pass between Earth and sun, and for those standing in the narrow path of totality, daylight will be swallowed by shadow, birds will grow quiet, temperatures will drop, the sky will darken, not like sunset, but in an eerie, otherworldly way that seems to confuse time itself. For just a few fleeting minutes, the stars will appear, the planets will shine, and the sun's corona pale. Ghostly crown of plasma will blaze around the blackened disk of the moon. And in that moment, as the Earth plunges into temporary twilight, a billion-year ballet of gravity, inertia, and geometry will have reached a crescendo. What you are witnessing is not a break in the system, but its brilliance. We often fear what we don't understand, but an eclipse is not unknown. It is perhaps one of the most precisely understood phenomena in astronomy. Scientists can predict them centuries in advance. The coordinates, the timing, the duration, everything about April 8th has already been calculated with uncanny precision. There is nothing supernatural at play. No divine punishment, no apocalyptic shift, just physics, just shadow, just Earth, moon, and sun aligning as they've done for eons. So why, then, does it feel so spiritual? Why does it silence crowds and humble scientists? Because deep down, we all crave moments that remind us that we're part of something bigger, something ancient, elegant, and beyond our control. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's also 400 times closer. That one extraordinary coincidence allows these two celestial bodies to appear the same size from Earth. Without that, there would be no perfect eclipse, no corona, no daylight turned into dusk. It is, from our perspective, a fluke of scale. But perhaps, more beautifully, it is a reminder that from the right vantage point, even something small can completely transform something unimaginably powerful. Isn't that a metaphor worth thinking about? As the eclipse approaches, you'll hear voices, some grounded, some sensational. Some will say, this is a portal. Others will speak of prophecies. There will be fear-mongers, conspiracy theorists, pseudo-scientific interpretations. This, too, is predictable, because where wonder exists, myth often follows. But you don't need myths to be moved, you just need awareness. You need a willingness to see the eclipse for what it is, a reminder, a signal from the cosmos, not to fear the dark, but to understand it. Not to recoil from shadow, but to realize that shadow itself is part of the dance. When you watch that sliver of sun shrink into a ring and then vanish, you will feel it not just on your skin, but in your psyche, because the light that sustains our planet will be gone. And even though you know it will return, those minutes will stretch. They will demand presence. They will humble your sense of permanence. And when the light returns, when the sun emerges from behind the moon, you will feel something new. Renewal, relief, reverence, and if you're open to it, clarity. The solar eclipse of April 8th is not just a celestial event. It is a mirror. And like all mirrors, it does not tell you what to think. It simply reflects who you are. What you bring to it is what it will echo back. If you bring fear, you will feel fear. If you bring curiosity, you will encounter awe. If you bring intention, perhaps you will find meaning. This is the power of perspective. The cosmos offers us events. We, as conscious beings, offer them interpretation. Meaning is not handed down by the stars. It is drawn upward from the soul. We live in a world so saturated with artificial light that we forget how sacred darkness once was. In ancient times, the night sky was not a backdrop. It was a teacher, a calendar, a cathedral. The stars were not just points of light, but stories inked across the dome of existence. People would gather around fires, not screens, and look up not to scroll, but to wonder. In that world, a solar eclipse wasn't just startling, it was sacred. The sudden blotting of the sun ignited myth, birthed fear, inspired awe. Civilizations paused. Empires shuddered. Leaders prayed. Because the sun giver of life had vanished. And when you don't understand why something disappears, your mind fills the gap with stories. Some beautiful, some terrifying. But here's what I find more astonishing. Even without the tools of modern science, some of our ancestors observed with enough discipline, patience, and reverence to predict eclipses accurately. The Babylonians did it. So did the Chinese. They didn't have satellites or telescopes or physics equations. What they had was attention, focus, the willingness to watch the sky not as entertainment, but as revelation. So now, in an age where we've decoded so much of the universe's language, what excuse do we have not to pay attention? Let's not reduce this eclipse to a photo op. Let it be more than a trending hashtag. Don't just aim your phone at the sky, aim your mind, aim your heart. Because while the mechanics are known, the meaning is up to you. And perhaps that's the deepest truth eclipses offer us, that the universe is a stage, but it's our consciousness that decides whether the play is tragedy or transcendence. So when April 8th arrives and the daylight dims, don't run, don't hide, don't feed the hysteria that may swirl in the digital wind. Stand in it, breathe it in, let your body register the drop in temperature. Let your eyes adjust to the strange ethereal hues. Let your mind wrestle with the ancient and the modern colliding in a single moment. Because this is what it means to be human. Not to control nature, but to witness it. Not to fear change, but to adapt with grace. Not to worship the sky, but to learn from it. And speaking of learning, let's be clear. This eclipse is not a warning. It is not an omen. It is not a glitch in the matrix. It is a feature of this grand simulation we call reality. Eclipses have happened long before we named them, and they will continue long after we are dust. What makes this one different is not the moon or the sun. It's us. It's our awareness. Our ability to interpret, to feel, to wonder. In this way, eclipses are less about the heavens and more about our humanity. They strip away the noise. They mute the usual rush. They hush the mind, if only for minutes, and create the conditions for clarity. That's the real power here, not the celestial mechanics, but the silence they generate, a silence loud enough for you to hear your own thoughts, maybe even to question them. Now let's address something I often encounter as a scientist and communicator. People ask me, why do we need to talk about feelings when we talk about science? Isn't science supposed to be cold, hard, objective? And to that I say no. Science is objective, yes. But scientists? We are not. We are humans. And what drives us to explore, to discover, to persist in the face of the unknown is not objectivity, it's passion, curiosity, a hunger for meaning, a desire to know where we come from and what we're part of. So yes, I will speak of feelings. Because if a total solar eclipse doesn't move you, if it doesn't pierce through the armor of daily distractions and awaken something raw and real, then perhaps you're not looking closely enough. And speaking of looking closely, let's not forget the science. The totality of this eclipse will last longer than most up to 4 minutes in some places. That's long enough to feel it, really feel it. To lose track of time, to be reminded that you're standing on a spinning rock, bathed in the light of a star, momentarily blocked by a silent stone that orbits us every 27 days. The geometry of it is exquisite. The timing, impeccable. The odds, astronomical. And yet, here it is, scheduled, precise, as if the universe wanted to remind us that in a world full of chaos, some things still follow a rhythm. This rhythm is what binds us all, whether you live in a skyscraper or a village, whether you speak English or Urdu or Navajo, whether you're young or old, skeptical or spiritual. When the light disappears, you will feel it. You will look up, and you will be united by that one simple, ancient instinct, awe. And if that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. So don't panic when this happens. Rejoice, reflect, realign. Let this be your moment to remember the beauty of order, the dignity of science, the poetry of perspective. Let it be a reset not of technology, but of spirit. And when the light returns, as it always does, ask yourself, what will I bring back into the world with it? Let us now proceed deeper into the eclipse node, just the one above us, but the one within. Because the shadow cast by the moon is not the only darkness we encounter. There are eclipses of thought, of trust, of collective truth. In recent years, we've witnessed a different kind of obscuration not of sunlight, but of clarity. Disinformation spreads faster than photons. Division eclipses unity. And somewhere along the way, we began to trust panic more than process, emotion more than evidence. So when something as predictable and majestic as a total solar eclipse approaches, it's no surprise that fear creeps in. It always does when we've grown distant from understanding. But here lies the remedy. Knowledge, observation, perspective. We must learn to see again, not just with eyes, but with intellect. Because when you truly see this eclipse for what it is, panic evaporates. You begin to marvel, not at what's being lost, but at what's being revealed. And what is revealed is not just a cosmic alignment, it is the delicate, interwoven dance of celestial mechanics. The moon does not move randomly, it orbits in precision. It obeys gravitational law as surely as tides obey the moon. And when it crosses paths with the sun, it doesn't violate order, it displays it. The universe is not unraveling, it is performing. And we, standing beneath it, have a choice. We can witness this with superstition or with science. We can fall back into myth or rise into mindfulness, because the beauty of a total eclipse is that it is both terrifying and peaceful. It reminds us that we're small, yes, but not insignificant. We matter not because the universe needs us, but because we are the only known species that can comprehend what is happening. That comprehension is a gift. It is sacred. It is why we build telescopes, why we send spacecraft, why we peer into darkness and dare to ask what lies beyond. And while the universe owes us no explanations, it whispers them anyway in wavelengths, in patterns, in shadows like these. And if we're listening, if we're curious, we get to decode that whisper into meaning. That's the magic of science. It doesn't take away the mystery. It gives you the tools to marvel at it more deeply. So when you stand in the path of totality, understand what you're truly witnessing. Not just an eclipse, but a convergence of time, light, gravity, and consciousness. The photons that usually travel uninterrupted from the sun's surface to your skin taking just over 8 minutes to make the journey will be momentarily blocked by a moon that's just the right size and just the right distance to create one of the most symmetrical spectacles known to the human eye. And your brain, with its billions of neurons and trillions of synaptic connections, will interpret that sudden shift in light, not just as an astronomical event, but as a signal to pay attention, to awaken, to feel the sudden coolness on your skin. Feel the hush in the air, like the world itself is holding its breath. Feel the momentary confusion of your senses as the day dips into twilight. And then feel the return, the first sliver of sunlight piercing the black edge of the moon. That light will feel different, more alive, more sacred, not because it's changed, but because you have. These are the moments when we remember what it means to be human, not just to survive, but to wonder. Not just to live under the sky, but to live in dialogue with it. And when millions experience that wonder at once, when eyes across nations are lifted skyward, synchronized in awe, that's a moment of unity, of shared story, of planetary consciousness. Do not let that pass unnoticed. The eclipse may last minutes, but the imprint it leaves, if you allow it, can last a lifetime. Because what is the value of such a moment, if not to transform how we see ourselves, not just as individuals pacing through routines, but as participants in a grand cosmic narrative? The eclipse reminds us that we are not spectators of the universe. We are in it, shaped by it, orbiting with it. We share our elements with stars, our tides with the moon, our seasons with the angle of Earth's axis. And yet, for all our intimacy with the cosmos, we forget. We shrink our lives to the scale of inboxes, traffic lights, and late-night headlines. We forget that the same laws guiding the moon's orbit also govern the neurons firing in our brains, and that the same sun we worry might disappear for a moment is the same star that once birthed the atoms in our blood. When you step into the shadow of the moon on April 8th, you are stepping into more than an astronomical phenomenon. You are stepping into alignment, not just of celestial bodies, but of perspective. The moment the sun vanishes from view is not the beginning of darkness, it is the invitation to reflect. And as the stars reveal themselves in broad daylight, perhaps the deeper revelation is not out there in space, but within us. The question is not, what does this eclipse mean? But rather, what will I allow it to awaken in me? This is not sentimentalism. It is a call to responsibility. Because when we acknowledge our place in this cosmic ecosystem, we are also forced to confront how carelessly we sometimes treat it. The planet that makes this eclipse viewable at all the Earth, our fragile spacecraft, is not just a stage, it is our only home. And in that brief span when the sun disappears, you may notice more than just astronomical marvel. You may notice silence. You may notice stillness. And in that stillness, the question echoes louder than ever: are we living as if we truly understand the miracle of this place? Let the eclipse be your answer. Not in words, but in choices. Let it reset your urgency, your assumptions, your pace. Let it slow you down long enough to reconsider where your attention goes, where your energy is spent, and what you're actually orbiting in your own life. The moon eclipses the sun, not by being brighter or stronger, but by being in the right position. What in your life is eclipsing your light? What habits, fears, distractions have moved into alignment just enough to block your inner sun? This moment invites that level of inquiry, not as a crisis, but as a recalibration. Because eclipses, by nature, are temporary. The light returns, the warmth returns, the birds begin to sing again. But you get to decide whether you return to the same orbit or chart a new one. Most people will look up and take a photo. Fewer will take a breath. Even fewer will take stock of their place in the great cosmic unfolding. But if you're still listening, still with me here, you may be one of those few. The ones who don't just watch events, but let events watch them back. So no, don't panic. Don't let fear hijack what is actually an invitation. Let April 8th be the day you didn't just observe the sky, but remembered your connection to it. Let it be the day the sun disappeared and you discovered something even brighter within. Because when millions of people across borders, across belief systems, across history pause to look at the same sky, to witness the same shadow pass across the same sun, something profound happens. For a few moments, we are no longer fragmented by politics, language, or ideology. We are earthlings, nothing more and nothing less, and that is enough. The total solar eclipse on April 8th will carve a diagonal path across North America, passing over homes, cities, highways, farms, and mountains. It will not discriminate. It will not ask who you voted for, what your religion is, or how much money you make. It will simply move quietly, precisely, indifferently. And yet, in that silence, it offers us one of the few experiences left that can still unite us not in fear, but in wonder. In a world where our attention is fragmented into a million algorithm-driven choices, the eclipse offers a moment of synchronized stillness, a collective gasp, a shared exhale. And while that unity may be temporary, its potential is not. Because when enough people are humbled at once, when enough minds are elevated by the same spectacle, light plants a seed of responsibility, a reminder that we share more than land and laws. We share the sky, we share the light, we share the orbit, And if we can share that, perhaps we can share a future that's worthy of such cosmic elegance. Science gives us the vocabulary to understand and eclipse the terms, the mechanics, the mathematics, but only reflection can give us its meaning. And what it means is this: we are capable of precision, but we are also capable of perspective. We can chart the position of the moon down to the inch. We can forecast the path of its shadow to the millisecond. But can we forecast where our species is headed? Can we, with the same rigor and awe, chart a future for ourselves that is worthy of the universe we inhabit? This is the real question the eclipse poses. Not as a threat, but as a mirror. Not as a warning, but as a test of maturity. We are no longer ancients trembling under an unexplained sky. We are observers, explorers, thinkers. The eclipse does not demand a sacrifice. It demands attention. It demands humility. It demands that we ask better questions, not just about the cosmos, but about the systems we've built here on Earth. Systems that often eclipse truth, that obscure hope, that block the full brilliance of what humanity could be. And yet, hope remains, not in abstract dreams, but in moments like this, moments where light is temporarily lost, only to return more brilliant than before. Because that is the promise written into every eclipse. The darkness passes, the light returns, not by chance, but by design, not by panic, but by orbit. And if the universe can follow such laws, perhaps we can too, not just in the stars, but in our societies. Let us use this moment then, not to spin myths or indulge in fear, but to recalibrate our place in the great equation. We are not at the center. We never were, but we are within it deeply, meaningfully, undeniably, and in that inclusion lies both privilege and responsibility. Then let us rise now, not just in thought, but in accountability. Because if this eclipse teaches us anything, it's that nothing disappears without consequence and nothing returns without meaning. The light you'll see reemerge on April 8th will be the same light that has always been there. It never left. It was only obscured. And isn't that the most human thing of all? To mistake shadow for absence? To panic in darkness rather than pause and trust its passage? The earth does not fear the moon's shadow. The sun does not grieve its temporary concealment, and the cosmos does not ask permission to proceed. It simply moves. It evolves. It continues. The question is, do we as a civilization use moments like these to evolve not just technologically, but ethically, spiritually, interpersonally? Do we let awe become wisdom, or do we let it expire like a fleeting photo on a feed? Because the world is full of people watching the sky, but not all are learning from it. We are the first species known to gaze upon a total solar eclipse and understand why it happens. That's not just a fact to recite, that's a privilege to carry. It means we are no longer imprisoned by superstition, but it also means we can no longer hide behind ignorance. To know is to be responsible. To witness is to be changed. And to stand in the path of a solar eclipse is to stand in the middle of a question. Now that you've seen this, what will you do? Will you live smaller, or will you expand with it? Will you return to chaos, or will you begin to orbit something truer, something steadier? Perhaps not a planet, but a principle. Perhaps not a star, but a state of being. The eclipse lasts minutes, but meaning lasts as long as you let it. And what you do with that meaning is the true event. Not the alignment of the heavens, but the alignment of your life with wonder, with science, with truth, with responsibility. So do not panic when the sky goes dark. Do not tremble at the mystery. Instead, marvel at the fact that you were born into a universe that lets you witness it, that you were gifted the consciousness to ask, why does this happen? And the courage to stay and listen for the answer. That's what separates panic from presence. That's what turns a shadow into a lesson. And if you're still with me, if this journey through light and darkness has stirred something in you, then remember this: the cosmos is not finished with you. There will be other eclipses, other alignments, other moments when science and soul collide, but you won't be the same. You'll have seen what very few see. You'll have felt what very few feel. And you'll have remembered that knowledge doesn't erase, a weight deepens it. So go outside on April 8th, find your spot, watch the sky, and when the sun disappears, let it remind you of everything you've forgotten about the world and about yourself. Then, when the light returns sand, it will carry it with you, not just in your eyes, but in your choices. Because light, once truly seen, doesn't just illuminate the sky. It illuminates the path forward,